In today's video, we are doing a detailed analysis on both the macro and the short-term charts, going over exactly everything you need to know, why the charts are very much bullish, and some very important indicators on both the monthly and weekly charts, which could predict the next potential moves. Let's go ahead and jump on in. Okay, MegaWhale team, welcome back to the channel. Thank you for tuning in. I hope you're all having an absolutely fantastic day today. In today's video, we're doing a comprehensive macro, weekly, daily, and short-term analysis, going over absolutely everything you need to know moving forward. We'll also be discussing the potential for a weekly breakout, the Bitcoin dominance chart, the total cryptocurrency market, and of course, altcoins. Before we do get into it, smash that like button, hit that comment button, and subscribe to the channel. We post daily videos for Bitcoin focusing on the facts, the data, the technical, the structural information, no hype, no BS, no emotion, pure raw TA. If that is the kind of content you are interested in, join us on Telegram. It is the first link down below. You will get access to charts, updates, videos, educational posts, news events, and everything you need to stay in the loop of cryptocurrency with Bitcoin and the relevant economic news. If you are interested in taking your trading to the next level, you can join us on the VIP channel by clicking my pinned comment in that free channel. Click my name, all these links for more information. You will get access to trading setups with exact entries, exact targets, exact stop losses, trade justification, exclusive analysis, and so much more, including access to all of our multiple group chats, which you can see on the screen here. Go ahead and contact me. That is what you're interested in, and let's get into the video. So as we can see momentarily over here for Bitcoin, in the past 24 hours, we have seen a fair amount of chop. In fact, we saw a pretty significant short-term sell-off for Bitcoin, which was largely perpetuated by the Mt. Gox fear. There was some movement around the Mt. Gox wallets, which caused a fair bit of fear in the market. Didn't actually lead to any selling, but that fear itself pushed some market participants to actually sell, which resulted in a flash correction in the price action, moving the price down to retest that critical level of 63 to 64,000. Again, sometimes the event itself or the fear of a potential negative event itself is enough to move the markets even if the event does not occur. In this instance, we have seen that flash correction, we have seen the loss of that uptrend on the weekly, and in the last 24 hours we have managed to bounce from our high time frame support, once again flipping this area as an area of support and moving back upwards to close the daily candle above that weekly uptrend. So all in all, a strong flash correction that has since been reclaimed. Let's go ahead and jump over to the market data. Taking a look at that market data, 24-hour volume is up 37%. We are sitting at 171 billion. 24-hour liquidations taking a massive jump to 328 million. Of the 328 million, 276 million have come from long positions and 52 million have come from short positions. So you can see just how violent that move, that short-term flash correction was for the market, particularly with Ethereum having over 100 million in liquidations itself. Moving over to the DXY, not really that much happening. Again, we are not expecting that much to happen until we move into that interest rate release, which is going to be on the 1st of August in about 5 days. So very much watching that interest rate release, and that interest rate release is going to have a massive impact on the DXY, whether it be a positive or a negative impact. We are likely going to see some large movements, and again, the result of that interest rate data will play a massive role in shaping the narrative of price action moving into the next few months for Bitcoin and for traditional assets. We'll talk more about that getting closer to that interest rate release. Moving over to the S&P 500 really quickly before we get into our video, we can see, guys, we have seen a short-term weekly correction here for the S&P 500. Overall, nothing of major concern. corrections are very much healthy in uptrends, and it is only a worry if these corrections result in high time frame structural levels of support being eliminated. Just as everyone was panicking in this correction expecting the top to be in, we did not lose that high time frame level of support at 5,000, and we saw that macro continuation. Our high time frame level of support right now is sitting at that 5,300 level, so provided the correction does not result in the price action losing that level, we are likely going to see an extended continuation upwards. If we were to break below this region at 5,300, that would be the first instance of prior high points being lost as areas of support. So we can see even back over here, this prior high, we came back and retested it. Okay, we broke through this prior high, we came back, we held a support, we broke through this prior high, we came back and held a support. We've been establishing higher highs and lower highs along this entire time. So a breakdown of that 5,300 with the first indication of major structural weakness since that trend has originated in 2023. Overall, still bullish. That is it, guys. Let's jump into Bitcoin. Again, we have a lot to be jumping over. The total, the Bitcoin dominance chart, the short-term price action, everything we'll be discussing. Let's jump in. Before we do, a quick word from today's video sponsor, and we'll get into it. I'd like to introduce our partner, BitUnix. BitUnix is a global, non-KYC, no country restriction exchange, making it a perfect exchange to trade on if you're from the USA, from Canada, the Netherlands, or just prefer to trade without KYC. This exchange is a futures and spot exchange with over 200 different trading pairs, and some of the lowest fees in the game. If you sign up with my link down below, you'll get access to 15% off your trading fees, as well as an exclusive reward center where you can claim up to a multitude in USDT prizes. So go ahead and sign up with my link down below for 15% off, and I'll see you in there. Okay guys, let's go ahead and get stuck into Bitcoin. We're going to start on the short term and build it up to the macro chart. So taking a look at Bitcoin's price action here, as we can see, and as we discussed momentarily at the start of the video, we saw a pretty large flash correction yesterday, resulting in a move down to that 63.8 to 63,000 region. This is a critical area of support. If we zoom back on the charts over here, we can see back in, was it March, April, May, just in May, the end of May, we saw a fair bit of resistance around that 63 to 63.8 region. When we finally broke through that area, we saw a strong continuation upwards into that 72K region. When we finally retested this area, we broke below it and saw a flash correction just to retest it as resistance to see that extended continuation. When we broke through it a few days ago, we saw that strong continuation back upwards, and we are now retesting it as an area of support. So we're looking at this structure here. We have this breakthrough, we see a peak, we have this come down to retest as support, or in this instance, resistance, before we see that next leg to the range low. We are seeing a very similar setup over here. We have seen, again, a gradual increase into this area of resistance. We break through the resistance, create a high, come back down to retest it as support, okay, that was resistance, before we potentially see that continuation to the range high. So as of right now, we'll discuss this on the macro chart. Again, while we sustain above 63,000, which is going to be this critical area of support, which we'll discuss on the macro again, and if you watched yesterday's video, you will know why it's so important, Bitcoin is still bullish, and we are still expecting continuations to that range high point. So let's zoom into the smaller time frame and then get into the macro charts and discuss exactly what we expect to occur on the higher time frame, starting on the hourly chart. This is going to be our hourly chart over here, guys. We can see once again just how perfectly Bitcoin really came down and grab that low side liquidity before seeing that continuation back upwards. We do have a short-term downtrend over here represented by this downtrending diagonal trend line, and you can see Bitcoin is coming up as we speak to almost touch that trend line. And again, this short-term downtrending resistance is going to be the resistance Bitcoin is going to have to break through to see that continuation back into the 68,000 $60,000 region. So on the short term, we are looking pretty decent here. If we break through our resistance, we are expecting a short-term continuation up to 68,000, which should then trigger that larger continuation into the $70,000 region. Everything between the current price point and this $63,000 region is simply just going to be chop. It really has no high time frame significance, as only when structural levels break, whether it be a resistance or a support, do we then see confirmation of directional shifts. We can see those directional shifts develop prior to the breakdowns by watching leading indicators such as momentum, but it is only when we actually break those levels do we see a proper shift in a representation from the buyers and the sellers and the overall trajectory of the price action. Therefore, if we do not drop below 63,000, the expected trajectory for Bitcoin over the period of time is going to be upward. Now, this is a really good thing because it identifies a clear invalidation point. If we were to lose 63,000, we can already see, guys, on that VRPV, we do have a bit of a gap over here, which takes us into this lower 60,000 region. We are expecting a little bit of a correction for Bitcoin. If 63 is lost, we would expect to potentially see 62,000 and 60,000 as target. So for the bearish scenario, I would not be bearish over here, but if we do lose 60,000, that is when I'd be expecting shorts. I'd be expecting corrections for Bitcoin. That is it for the short term, guys. Let's move over to the daily and weekly charts. Moving over to the daily chart, Bitcoin is still very much in its broader descending channel formation, a fantastic pattern, a bullish pattern, a representation of consolidation and eventual potential reversal, a fantastic thing to see. But as discussed yesterday, this is a very wide channel. It is around a 22% depth, which is huge, meaning the range high to range low swings are massive. Again, the bigger the swings, the longer it takes to play out, the more aggressive reactions we see on more volatile coins such as altcoins, and the more we see emotion swing. And that is why we've seen emotion so high and low at these pivot points of the price action. But looking at this from a structural perspective, once again, we're looking at that dotted trend line, which is that 63,000 level. Again, this is why we said 63 is important, because it represents the mid level of this channel. A break of that mid level will result in a directional continuation to retest these lows. We'll come back and discuss the significance of this move in just a moment. But let's focus on the bullish scenario. While we remain above 63, we are expecting directional continuations to retest the range high. As we can see, we have had a positive RSI breakout, a positive momentum shift, which is a fantastic indication for the price action to move to the range high. Not enough for it to confirm that we're going to go higher. We'll talk about that in a second, but at least enough to validate that we could potentially see that continuation to the range high, provided 63 is able to sustain. So let's talk about the significance of this channel on the weekly. Let's talk about what is happening there on the weekly chart. So let's go ahead and bring ourselves to that weekly chart momentarily. We can see on the weekly chart, guys, we have got a very important downtrend on the RSI, and this is going to be the downtrend we are watching like a hawk. This is the important weekly trend as it is a representation of our weekly momentum, but most importantly, it has not shown us a positive momentum shift at the moment. That could change. These downtrends eventually always break. We can't just always go downward on the RSI. Eventually, we are going to see a breakout. The question is, at what price point will Bitcoin be when that breakout occurs? That is going to have a massive impact on the expected trajectory of Bitcoin and, more importantly, potential targets for Bitcoin when it were to break out. If we see this RSI breakout upwards, regardless of where Bitcoin is, that will result in a reversal in price action, a bullish reversal. Now, I'll just paint you a few pictures. Say, hypothetically, Bitcoin nukes it down, we see a correction, and then we consolidate If it breaks out over here, we'll still see a reversal in the price action occur at that point. We won't be crossing new highs, but we'll still see a reversal. Whereas if Bitcoin is able to sustain 63, flutter around here, eventually break through here, and we get that cross out, that is going to be a very good indication because we have double confluence. We have confluence of our structural breakout, we have a confluence of our trend breakout, and our momentum, which is a representation of strength, that we are likely going to see a stronger directional continuation to a new high. So we have to watch out that weekly RSI, keep a close eye on it on the weekly closes in 3 days, and watch how it develops. Let's move over to the macro charts now. Again, moving over to the macro charts, I want to be taking a look at that 2-week chart, specifically taking a look at this instance here on the stochastic. We talked about this yesterday, and the current instance on the stochastic. What we can notice is the prior time, and to show you again, the prior time we retested the leading span B, which is the lower band of the Ichimoku cloud, this red band, we saw a stochastic RSI cross and a bounce continuation. We saw a retest of a leading span B represented by this green arrow. We saw a stochastic cross, a bounce, and a continuation. So now when we're moving to the weekly chart, we've got an identified pattern over here. We can see we are potentially having another stochastic cross to occur within 2 to 3 weeks. If we look at when we saw that green arrow, okay, the green arrow was a representation of the bounce from the leading span B, and then we draw a date range trend from that to the point of which the stochastic crossed, we saw 2 weeks. We saw 2 to 3 weeks. So assuming we see a similar representation here, we would expect the stochastic RSI to cross within the next 1 to 2 weeks. That could trigger a continuation higher. The big question is, will Bitcoin be able to sustain above 63K during that period, which will result in a stronger momentum shift and thus continuation? Or within that 2-week period, are we going to see a full-blown reversal in price action and retest of these range lows again? That is the question, and that is why the short-term charts are very important, because to identify where the price action is developing to, you have to watch what is happening now, not the bigger picture. So looking at what is happening now, watching those key levels, watching those trigger points will help you identify when the trend is actually shifting, how that strength or weakness is developing, and then how you can actually execute on the premeditated plans that we have set out within these videos, and again, the ones that you've developed yourself. Moving over to Bitcoin dominance, we can see over the last 24 hours, Bitcoin is coming up to a very interesting point. This is going to be almost the highest point Bitcoin dominance has reached for the last 4 years, of 3 years, guys. 56.57, a critical area of resistance. We would definitely not like to see Bitcoin dominance break this level, maybe a temporary peak and then correction. Nevertheless, if Bitcoin dominance is rising, we know altcoins are generally weaker in comparison to their Bitcoin pairs, which could do 2 things: bleed altcoins out, destroy altcoins if total cryptocurrency market cap is decreasing, or decrease the likelihood we see a very parabolic altcoin cycle. For us to see altcoins really kick off, we need to see 2 things. We need to see Bitcoin dominance correct, and we need to see, with that correction, the total market cap increase. We need to see a total market cap increase. The reason why we saw altcoins bleed off so aggressively in the last 24 hours is because we saw the total decrease and we saw Bitcoin dominance increase. That combination is a very bad combination for altcoin performance. So watching that very closely, guys. Finishing up on the totals, very similar structural patterns here, descending channel formations. We are not out of the woods by any means, nor is Bitcoin out of the woods while it remains in the descending channel. But if we are able to break through these range highs, the outlook is going to become very, very bullish. Thanks for watching. Have a fantastic day. Catch you guys in the next one on Sunday. Take it easy. See you then.